So, with all of this happening, is Nigeria heading for a possible recession? Bismarck Rwani, Managing Director, Financial Derivatives, joins me now. Financial Derivatives Company joins me now to focus on this. Good morning, Mr. Rwani.
Good morning, Harriet.
It's great to have you on the program. Now, I'm sure you've read that piece of information. The Vice President talked about a plan to raise $25 billion through public and private financing for infrastructure to stave off recession. In your opinion, what do you think the Vice President means?
I think the concept of counter-cyclical spending out of a slowdown is one, and that is the correct thing to do. What the quantum being talked about comes to about $25 billion. It's quite small. The infrastructure of Nigeria is $360 billion. What is required is a start off on with something quite aggressive, which means that you have to be courageous and bold enough to go out there and raise money. Therefore, $25 billion is less than 10% of the total infrastructure gap of Nigeria. It's a move in the right direction, but it is too little at this point in time. What we need is a massive. I can understand the thinking that we want to afford according to our clock, but the thing about economics is that there's counter-cyclical moves and there are pro-cyclical moves. If you're going counter-cyclical, you must be courageous and audacious enough to take a bold and strong and measured move.
So this measured move, don't you think it's just for the at least short term to medium term, before they begin to come up with more measures and plans or strategies, if you like to put it that way, for a longer term?
Well, about therapy, economic therapy is that an underdose moves in the right direction, but it doesn't do anything. This ailment, this economic ailment is quite significant and it's structural. We need a major dose of the thing. And how you're going to get it, borrow, yes. If you're going to some of your assets to do it, yes. But you need a massive boost to start off. That's what we call stimulant. You need a fiscal at this time.
So how do you think the funds will be raised? Maybe through raising bonds, treasury bills, or World Bank loans, for instance?
Yes, I mean, I agree that $25 billion is a lot of money because our reserves are $29 billion right now. But we are going to raise the money. We're going to, finance some of our local debt with international money. But the terms and conditions under which we shall borrow are definitely not the terms and conditions under which we do business today. The life of a debtor, right, and a debtor who is raising money to address structural issues is different from the life of somebody who is just who has no debt obligations. So it brings about fiscal discipline. The good thing about it is that fiscal discipline, it targets investments that have an impact, which has a great multiplier effect. And that's what we're talking about. We are on the same page in terms of what is required. What I'm actually questioning is that the early days are where you need a big boost. And Nigeria has a lot of goodwill. This administration comes in with a lot of goodwill in the international community. We should go out there and tap it and use it for the required activities before consultations start to come in as we move to the next election. The short term for Nigeria and the long term are very close in terms of what is required to be done.
So, Mr. Rwani, in the short term, what measures do you think should be taken to stimulate the economy, the low-hanging fruits, as it were?
Sure, we've done one, which is pay off all the arrears of the states, give them the bailout. There's been another bailout. Thirdly, you've got to be good enough to know that the 2016 budget to be countercyclical. That is, we are going to spend than we have. And deal with your subsidies. Subsidies are discretionary. So you have to deal with all of this is put together. But stimulus is important. But you're not going to do the economy at the same time as have the drains on it in terms of abuse of office, corruption, and to a large extent, some of the subsidies are nowhere.
Now, a lot of what we do actually, depends on, apart from the fact that we're raising domestic revenue, also we depend on foreign direct investment. How optimistic are you about the prospect of attracting foreign funds at this time, bearing in mind the declining global ratings?
There's no doubt about the fact that we have to raise money. And to raise money, you need confidence system. We need domestic, diaspora, and international investments. All of this put together. One of the key issues is value of the naira. So people are not invest money as long as they know that the exchange rate is out of equilibrium. So we have to deal with that. We can't avoid it at all.
Well, dealing with that exchange rate, I read this morning one of the reports that IMF is still asking that Nigeria still considers reevaluating its naira or readjusting the naira, as it were. But conversations I've had with you and some other analysts have constantly been in whose interest will this devaluation readjustment in the currency be?
No, you see, the adjustment, you don't have to do all of it in one day. You have to start moving in that direction. That's what we call the path, the equilibrium exchange path. Because the next thing you're going to say, oh, should we go to 230, 240? No, that's not the issue. The issue is that you start going in the path. If your oil prices are down, your oil revenues are down, then you have to reflect that in your exchange rate. You start appreciating again, you start to reflect it, and the currency begins to appreciate again. People are afraid that once we've gone in one direction, we never come back. That is inaccurate. The point is that currency move in all directions. But the worst thing to do is put your currency at a value that is suboptimal. But I think the central bank is at one time considering all options. They've not said they're not going to adjust. They've only said at this point in time that the currency is appropriately priced. Some of us are of the view that it is not appropriately priced. Some adjustment is required. However, some need to be done before the adjustment should be done simultaneously with the adjustment, which includes the fiscal issues, including the subsidy. So your stimulus, the great impact you get from this stimulus package, you not get as much as you could if you don't make some of those adjustments, because international investors are waiting to put money in, and if they don't get the right signal, they'll move money elsewhere. The money doesn't stay there indefinitely. It works for them.
But Mr. Ariwani, you have to also remember that as much as we're under pressure here on the domestic side, we've got other global challenges that we're actually facing. So readjusting the currency at this time, or not at this time, or not until we begin to get a positive picture from the global market, will not be in anybody's best interest. And so, yes, maybe until we get a more positive picture with regards oil prices, for instance, or with regards most of those other economies that have a direct impact on the Nigerian economy have a positive move, then we should not even begin to think about any readjustment, whether in the short or in the long term.
It's a commodity, and therefore I expect it to be volatile. We need to understand that the investors need to know the value of what they're bringing in, because they need to know the value of what they get out. They are investing in this market for a return. And the exchange rate is the price of one currency in terms of the other. That has to be done. We can't avoid that issue. So you can't have one thing down, like they say, ceteris paribus, and all. We need to move everything together.
So in terms of moving everything together, what other policy measures do you think should be put in place to attract more foreign capital, for instance, into the economy?
Well, the thing is that you have to have a safety net. I'm not just saying that currencies for the sake, because people say this is people, and that's not the truth. The truth is that say that shift your subsidies to more measured areas, like in education, health. Do not subsidize the consumption of petrol. You use the same amount of money to subsidize things where everybody will have the impact, where you can reduce school fees, where you can give all Nigerian students in particular categories scholarships and bursaries and all of that. You spend the money, but we need the fiscal stimulus. We need some spending to take place, and we also need to bring interest rates down. Interest rates are the so once you allow the currency to adjust, simultaneously you bring down interest rates. Small and scale businesses will be able to borrow. They will employ people. We are going to deal with unemployment. So it's a package. We've been talking about this forever. The point is that whatever we've been trying has not been working. Right? It's time to try something else, but to do it in the context so that it doesn't create poverty and doesn't create hardship. That is what economics is all about. The fear of doing, if you do nothing, you are guaranteed to lose. If you do something, maybe you'll win. I'm not guaranteeing that you'll win, but the chances are that, but the reality is that the question is very simple. If the price of oil to come down to $20 a barrel today, will you still keep the currency the way it is? How low must it go before we know that it's time for an adjustment?
Well, Mr. Bismarck Rwani, thank you so much for joining me on the program this morning and sharing your perspectives with us. Do have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bismarck Rwani is the Managing Director of Financial Derivatives Company. They're joining us to share his perspective on that particular issue. Well, we've got another perspective coming up in a moment. We'll be focusing on the Nigerian energy market. Stay with us.